Commander Hajin stood at the large window of Station Kepler 442. Her blue-scaled hands pressed against the cold glass. Outside in the darkness of space, she watched something that made her heart sink with fear. Another ship from the Coalition was being torn apart by the enemy. The Devourer bioships moved like angry sea creatures, their living hulls glowing with strange lights that pulsed like heartbeats. These were not normal ships, made of metal and circuits. The Devourers were alive, breathing, growing things that ate everything in their path. Their skin was thick and wet, covered in veins that glowed green and purple. They had no windows, no visible weapons, no pilots. They were the weapons, and they were hungry. Commander, a voice called from behind her. Taman, the young communications officer, was trying to keep his voice steady, but Heijian could hear the fear underneath. Is gone. All of them. There's no one left to fight. Heijian turned away from the window. Her amber eyes, which had seen so many battles, now held only sadness. She walked slowly to her command chair, feeling older than her 40 years. The weight of knowing that entire worlds were dying pressed down on her like a heavy blanket. How many? She asked quietly. 47 species, sir. The Devourers have eaten everything. Every world, every ship, every living thing they could find. We're the only ones left. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of life support systems. Her crew of 12 looked at her with hope in their eyes, but Heijian had no hope left to give them. She had been fighting these creatures for 3 years now, and nothing worked. Energy weapons barely scratched their living armor. Missiles were absorbed into their bodies and made them stronger. Even nuclear weapons only seemed to make them angry. The Devourers were perfect killers. They learned from every attack, grew stronger from every defeat. They didn't need food or water or air. They just needed to consume, to grow, to spread across the galaxy like a disease. Send out the final beacon, Hajin said, her voice barely loud enough for the others to hear. All frequencies, all languages. Tell anyone who might be listening that we tried to stop them. Tell them we're sorry we failed. Taman's fingers moved across his control panel. What should I say, Commander? Tell them the truth. Tell them that the Galactic Coalition is finished. Tell them to run if they can, to hide if they must. Tell them that the Devourers are coming and nothing can stop them. The message went out into the void, traveling faster than light to reach distant stars. But Hajin knew it was probably useless. If there were other civilizations out there, they were either too far away to help or too weak to matter. Hours passed. Then days. The Devourers circled the station like sharks around a wounded whale. They could have attacked at any time, but they seemed to be waiting. Perhaps they enjoyed the fear, or perhaps they were just taking their time to savor their final. Milhajin tried to sleep, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of the dead. Children from the school ships, scientists from the research stations, soldiers who had fought bravely until the end. All gone now, all consumed by the endless hunger of the Devers. On the third day, something impossible happened. The communications array, which had been barely working, suddenly came alive with a signal. The voice was clear and strong, speaking in perfect Coalition standard. Message received. Earth fleet en route. Hold position. The bridge fell completely. Silent. Every person stopped what they were doing and stared at the speakers. Earth? None of them had ever heard of such a place. The Coalition had mapped every known civilization in the galaxy, and there was no world called Earth. Taman, Heijian said slowly, can you trace that signal? The young officer's hands flew over his controls. It's coming from the outer rim, Commander. A system that's not on any of our charts. But the signal is strong, very strong. Whoever they are, they have powerful technology. Hajin felt something she hadn't felt in months. Not hope, exactly, but curiosity. Who were these people from Earth? How had they learned Coalition standard? Most importantly, did they really think they could fight the Devourers? Send a response, she ordered. Tell them what they're facing. Tell them about the Devourers, about how many we've lost. Them to stay away if they value their lives. But even as she gave the order, part of her wanted these strangers to come, because if they were foolish enough to answer a distress call from a doomed station, they might just be crazy enough to try something that everyone else thought was impossible. Devourers continued their slow circle around the station, patient as death itself. But now Hajin watched the stars, waiting for ships that might never come from a world called Earth. The space around Station Kepler 442 suddenly filled with light as ships appeared from nowhere. Hajin rushed to the observation window, expecting to see the familiar smooth curves of coalition vessels. Instead, she gasped at what she saw. These ships were nothing like anything in the galaxy. They were dark, angular beasts made of black metal that looked old and scarred. Every surface seemed to be covered with weapons, big guns, missile pods, and things that Hajin couldn't even identify. The ships looked like they had been built for one purpose only: war.
Ow.
Commander Taman called out, his voice shaking with excitement. The lead ship is requesting permission to dock. They're calling themselves the Earth Fleet. The largest ship moved toward the station with surprising grace for something so massive. As it got closer, Hajin could see the battle damage on its hull, deep scratches, burn marks, and patches where the metal had been repaired many times. This ship had seen real fighting, the kind that left permanent scars. A voice came through. The communications system, speaking perfect coalition standard. Station Kepler 442. This is Commander Dongwu of the UES Retribution. We apologize for the delay. We needed time to study your enemy and prepare appropriate countermeasures. The voice was calm and steady, but there was something underneath it that made Hajin's skin crawl. It reminded her of the deep-sea predators from her homeworld, creatures that could wait perfectly still for hours before striking with deadly speed. Permission granted, Hajin replied. But I must warn you, Commander Dongwu. The Devourers are unlike anything you've ever faced. They've destroyed 47 civilizations. They adapt to every weapon we use against them. We understand, came the reply. We've been watching. Watching how long had these humans been out there, studying the destruction of entire worlds. 20 minutes later, the airlock opened and the human delegation stepped onto the station. Hajin had expected them to look alien and strange, but they were surprisingly ordinary. They walked on two legs like many species, had two arms, and were covered in skin instead of scales or fur. They were about the same size as her people, maybe a little shorter, but their eyes were different. As Commander Dongwu approached her, Hajin noticed that his eyes were dark and completely focused. They reminded her of the ancient hunters that lived in the deepest parts of her home. Worlds, oceans, creatures that never stopped watching, never stopped calculating, never showed mercy. Commander Hajin Dongwu said, extending his hand in what seemed to be a greeting gesture. Thank you for holding position. We know this hasn't been easy. His grip was firm and warm, but Hajin could feel the strength in his fingers. These humans might look soft.
Ow!
But there was something dangerous about them. The human group included 5 officers, all wearing dark uniforms that looked practical rather than fancy. Unlike coalition uniforms with their bright colors and decorative elements, these were plain and functional. These people were clearly soldiers, not diplomats. This is Lieutenant Sujin, our tactical officer, Dongwu said, indicating a woman with short black hair and sharp eyes. She's been studying your enemy for quite some time. They moved to the station's main conference room, where Sujin immediately began setting up holographic displays. Her movements were quick and efficient, like someone who had done this many times before. The displays showed detailed images of Devourer bioships, their internal structure, their behavior patterns, even their reproduction cycles. The Devourers, Sujin said in a matter-of-fact voice, are an interesting challenge. They have adaptive bioarmor that changes to resist whatever attacks them. They share information instantly through a hive-mind connection. They reproduce exponentially, meaning their numbers double very quickly. On most worlds, this would be classified as an extinctional-level threat. Hajin stared at the displays. The humans had more detailed information about the Devourers than the Coalition had gathered in 3 years of fighting them. Most worlds? She asked. Dojin smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. It was the kind of smile that predators made before they attacked. Commander, you haven't seen what humans call Tuesday. The statement hung in the air like a challenge. Hajin looked around the table at the other human officers. They all had the same calm expression, as if facing an extinction-level threat. Was just another day at work for them. Where do you come from? Jin asked. Your world, Earth. It's not on any of our star charts. The Outer Rim, Commander Dongwu replied. We've been out there for a long time, watching, learning. Your galaxy is interesting, but it's also very peaceful. The way he said peaceful made it sound like a weakness. Our world is different, added another officer, a man called Kuncho. We've had to fight for everything, our food, our territory, our survival. We've been at war with our own planet for millions of years. Heijin felt a chill run down her spine. A world at war with itself. What kind of place could produce people like this? Outside the conference room windows, the Devourer bioships continued their slow circle around the station. But for the first time in months, Heijin wondered if they might have finally met their match. Over the next few days, Heijin spent time with the human crew members, trying to understand these strange people who had appeared from nowhere.
Tell me what?
She learned made her question everything she thought she knew about survival. The humans talked about their homeworld like it was trying to kill them every single day. During a meal break, Medical Officer Young-soo casually mentioned that his planet had frozen solid for thousands of years at a time. Ice ages, he called them, as if having your entire world turn into a giant snowball was perfectly normal. Heijin asked, her food forgotten. Young-soo shrugged and continued eating. We learned to make fire build. Shelters hunt the animals that could live in the cold. Some of us died, but the smart ones figured it out. And after the ice melted, oh, then we had other problems. Volcanoes that covered the sky with ash for years. No sunlight, no crops, lots of starvation. But we adapted. Heijin stared at him. On her world, a single volcanic eruption was considered a major disaster that required help from other planets. These humans had survived multiple catastrophes. That would have ended most civilizations. What about diseases? She asked, morbidly curious. Plagues killed about half our population several times, Young-soo said, checking his medical scanner as if this was just another fact to record. Black Death, Spanish flu, lots of smaller ones. But the survivors became resistant, and we learned to make medicines. Half your population died, and you just kept going. What else would we do? Young-soo looked genuinely confused by her shock. You either get tougher or you die. It's not complicated. Later that day, Heijin watched the human marines during their training exercises. She had seen many different species trained for combat, but this was different. The humans moved like flowing water, a deadly water that could cut through anything. Sergeant Ginho was demonstrating hand-to-hand combat techniques to some coalition soldiers. He picked up a simple wrench from a toolkit, and suddenly it became a weapon. With just a few movements, he showed how to use it to block, strike, and disarm an opponent.
Oh!
Everything is a weapon if you think about it, right? He explained to the amazed coalition troops. A fork, a chair, a piece of broken glass. Your enemy expects you to use guns and knives, but sometimes the thing that saves your life is something they never thought of. One of the coalition soldiers, a young Centaurian named Veltar, raised his hand. But Sergeant, what if you have no weapons at all? What if you're completely unarmed? Jinho smiled and held up his hands. Then you use these. Teeth, fingernails, elbows, knees. A human body has lots of ways to hurt someone if you know how to use them. The idea of fighting with just teeth and claws seemed barbaric to the coalition soldiers. But Hagian noticed they were all taking notes. During a break, she approached Jinho privately. Your people really fight with their bare hands? When we have to, he replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. Actually had to do it just last week when some Devourer scouts breached our ship. Nasty little creatures, but not too bad once you get past the acid spit and the extra arms. Heijin felt her blood turn cold. But you fought Devourers in hand-to-hand combat? Standard boarding protocol, Jinho said casually. Sometimes the corridors are too narrow for weapons or the enemy gets too close for guns. Sometimes you just have to get your hands dirty. But they're living weapons. Their claws can cut through metal. Their teeth inject poison. Ginho nodded. Yeah, they're tough. Lost 2 good Marines in that fight, but we killed 6 of them, so I call it a win. The casual way he talked about losing friends in brutal combat made Hagen's head spin. These humans didn't just accept death as part of life, they embraced it, planned for it, used it as a tool. That evening, she joined Commander Dongwu in the station's observation lounge. Outside, the Devourer bioships continued their patient circle, waiting for the right moment to attack. "Your world," she said quietly. "It sounds like hell." Dongwu sipped his coffee and considered her words. "I suppose it might seem that way to someone from a peaceful planet, but it's home. It made us who we are." "And who are you exactly?" He was quiet for a long moment, watching the alien predators outside. "We're survivors, Commander. We're the people who learned to thrive in a place that kept trying to kill us. We're the ones who turned every disaster into a lesson, every defeat into strength. The Coalition has advanced technology, peaceful societies, art and culture spanning thousands of years," Hajin said. "What do humans have?" Donghu's smile was cold and sharp. "We have something your peaceful civilizations never needed to develop. We have the absolute refusal to give up, no matter how bad things get. We have the knowledge that anything can be killed if you're willing to pay the price." He stood up and looked directly at the Devourer ships. "Your enemy thinks they're apex predators. They've never met the apex predator from a world where everything is trying to kill you from the day you're born." Hajin shivered, and for the first time since the humans arrived, she felt sorry for the Devourers. The battle began. At dawn, ship time, the Devourer swarms had finally decided to attack the station, their bioships moving in like a living tide of death. Hajin watched from the command center as the human fleet moved to intercept them. And what she saw changed everything she thought she knew about warfare. The Coalition had always fought with careful precision. Their ships stayed at safe distances, using energy weapons and guided missiles to pick off enemies one by one. It was clean, efficient, and civilized. The humans fought like wild animals, Captain Bora's destroyer. The Vengeance charged straight into the heart of the Devourer formation. Instead of firing from a distance, she aimed her ship like a spear and rammed it directly through the largest biocruiser. The impact should have destroyed both ships, but somehow the human vessel kept going, tearing through the living hull of the enemy like a knife through flesh. "Are they insane?" Taman whispered, watching the tactical display in horror, but the humans weren't finished. Even as their ship was stuck inside the dying Devourer, Bar's crew was cutting their way through the creature's internal passages with plasma torches and explosives. They were fighting inside a living enemy ship, while it thrashed and died around. Them, Engineer Hyanwu's voice crackled over the communication system. "Reactor core is stable. Setting charges on the creature's heart chamber. Everyone get ready for a big bang." "They're going to blow up the reactor while they're still inside?" Ajin asked, unable to believe what she was hearing. "Standard procedure." Commander Dongwu replied calmly from his command ship. "Sometimes you have to make sacrifices to win." The explosion lit up space like a small star. When the light faded, both ships were gone, but so was the entire left wing of the Devourer attack formation. The other bioships pulled back suddenly, uncertain, but Captain Bura and her crew weren't dead. Emergency pods launched from the explosion site, and rescue ships quickly picked them up. Most of them were injured, covered in alien blood and acid burns, but they were alive and already, asking for another ship to command. "How?" Hajin breathed. "We planned for it." Bior's voice came through the medical bay communicator. "Mapped out the creature's anatomy, calculated the blast radius, positioned the charges to create an escape route. You just have to think 3 steps ahead of the explosion." The battle continued, and each human attack was more brutal than the last. They used tactics that would have horrified Coalition military academies. Human Marines launched themselves from ships in simple spacesuits, using nothing but magnetic boots and cutting tools to board enemy vessels. They turned maintenance robots into bombs. They even used their own damaged ships as guided missiles. Lieutenant Sujin coordinated a group of fighters in an attack that made Hajin's blood run cold. Instead of trying to destroy a massive Devourer or mothership from the outside, they flew. directly into its mouth while it was trying to swallow a coalition transport. Once inside the creature's stomach, they planted explosives and fought their way out through its throat. The beast is designed to swallow ships whole, Sujin explained over the radio as her fighters emerged, covered in digestive acid but victorious. It doesn't expect its food to fight back from the inside. The most shocking moment came when Sergeant Jinho led a boarding party onto a Devourer command ship. These creatures were supposed to be impossible to fight in close combat. But the humans went in anyway with nothing but armored suits and close-range weapons. Hajin watched through the helmet cameras as the Marines moved through corridors filled with living walls that tried to grab them. The Devourers attacked with claws like swords and acid that could melt metal, but the humans just kept fighting. When their guns ran out of ammunition, they used knives. When their knives broke, they used their fists. Target the nerve clusters behind the head. Jinho's voice was calm, even as a devourer twice his size tried to tear him apart. They die just like anything else if you hit them in the right spot. One by one, the human Marines fought their way to the creature's brain chamber and destroyed it from the inside. When they emerged, they were barely recognizable under all the alien blood, but they were carrying samples of devourer technology and biological material. "How are they still alive?" Taman whispered, watching the medical teams treat the Marines. Most other species would have died from the acid exposure alone, but the humans just seemed annoyed by their injuries. Commander Dongwu stood at the tactical display, coordinating his fleet with the same calm efficiency he had shown during their first meeting. But now Heijin understood what she was really seeing. This wasn't just intelligence or military training. This was the absolute certainty of a predator that had never met anything it couldn't eventually kill. The Devourer swarms. For the first time in recorded history, began to retreat. Their bioships pulled back from the battle, moving away from Station Kepler 442 and the human fleet. They had met something that scared them more than they scared others, the running Taman said in amazement. "Of course they are," Dongwu replied. "They're intelligent creatures. They know when they've met something more dangerous than themselves." For the first time in 3 years, Heijin felt hope. The tide was finally turning. It was because the galaxy had found its own monsters to fight the monsters from the void. The journey to the Devourer home system took 3 weeks, but it felt like a lifetime to Heijin. She had never seen anything like the massive bio-world that waited for them at the end of their trip. It was huge, bigger than any planet she had ever seen, and it was alive. The entire surface pulsed like a giant heart, covered in veins that glowed with sick green light. "That's where they all come from," Commander Dongwu said, standing beside her on the bridge of his flagship. "Every devourer in the galaxy was born from that thing." Heijin stared at the writhing planet in horror. "How do we fight something that big?" "The same way we fight everything else," Dongwu replied. "We find its weak spots and we kill it." The combined human and coalition fleet spread out around the bioworld. But Heijin could see that most of the work would be done by the humans. The coalition ships were still important for support and logistics, but the real fighting would be handled by the strange, scarred vessels from Earth. "Your species doesn't just fight differently," Heijin said quietly. "You think differently than everyone else in the galaxy?" Dongwu nodded, his eyes never leaving the tactical displays that showed the enemy planet. "Most species try to contain threats, avoid them, or negotiate with them. They build walls and hope the bad things will go away. Humans trace problems to their source and end them permanently." The attack began with a coordinated bombardment from every human ship in the fleet. But instead of trying to destroy the planet from the outside, they were targeting specific points on the surface. Lieutenant Sujin had spent days analyzing the bio-world's structure, finding the nerve centers and vital organs hidden beneath the living crust. "It's not just a planet," she explained to the mixed human coalition command staff. "It's a single, living creature. Like a giant mother that gives birth to all the smaller devourers. If we can kill the mother, all her children will die too."
Oh.
The bio-world fought back. Massive tentacles erupted from its surface, reaching out to grab the attacking ships. The planet's skin opened up like wounds, revealing giant mouths filled with teeth the size of buildings. Smaller devourer ships poured out of these openings. It's like angry insects defending their nest. But the humans had planned for this. Captain Boral led a group of assault ships directly into one of the planet's mouths, disappearing into the creature's body like food being swallowed. But instead of being digested, her ships began cutting their way through the creature's internal organs with plasma torches and explosives. "We're inside the digestive system," Bior's voice crackled over the radio, moving toward what looks like a central nervous system. "This thing definitely doesn't like having us in here." Engineer Hyan Wu's team had rigged special explosives designed to disrupt biological systems. They weren't trying to blow up the planet. They were trying to poison it from the inside, like a medicine that kills bacteria. Deploying biotoxins in the circulatory system, Hyan Wu reported, "The creature's immune system is trying to fight us off, but our compounds are designed to look like normal nutrients until they reach the brain." Sergeant Jin Ho led marine units that had actually landed on the planet's surface. They were fighting their way through forests of living flesh, battling devourer creatures that were literally part of the planet itself. It was like fighting inside the body of a god. "Surface teams are making progress." Jinho's voice was calm, despite the sounds of battle in the background. "We found what looks like a major nerve cluster, preparing to sever the connection." The bioworld began to thrash more violently as the human attacks took effect. The psychic screaming that came from the dying planet was so loud that it could be heard even in space, transmitted through some kind of mental connection that made everyone's teeth ache. Hajin watched in amazement as the humans coordinated their attack with perfect precision. They weren't just randomly attacking, they were performing surgery on a planet-sized creature, cutting out its vital organs with the skill of trained doctors. "How did you know how to do this?" she asked Dongwu. "Same way we learned everything else," he replied. "We studied the problem, we made a plan, and we executed it. On Earth, if something is trying to kill you, you learn how to kill it back." The end came suddenly. The bioworld's screaming stopped. Its surface stopped pulsing, and the green light in its veins began to fade. All across the galaxy, every devourer, ship, and creature simply stopped moving and died. Their connection to their mother planet severed forever. Lieutenant Sujin approached with a datapad, her face tired but satisfied. "All primary targets eliminated. Sir, the devourer threat has been neutralized. Final casualty count is surprisingly low. We lost about 200 personnel. But we saved approximately 40 trillion lives across the galaxy." Dongwu simply nodded. "Good. Signaled the fleet. Time to go home." As the human ships prepared to leave, Heijin felt a strange mixture of gratitude and fear. The humans had saved the galaxy, but they had also shown everyone what they were capable of. They had killed a living planet with the same calm efficiency that other species use to fix broken machinery. "Will we see you again?" she asked Dongwu. "Probably not," he replied. "We prefer to stay in our own corner of the galaxy. But if something like this happens again, send us a message. It will come." The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind a dead world and a galaxy that would never be the same. The Deathworlders had saved them all, and everyone now knew that somewhere in the darkness, Earth was watching and waiting.